Sexual skill is not something you either have or you don't. It is something you develop, refine, deepen. And the research on this is unambiguous. Men who approach intimacy with curiosity and a genuine willingness to learn consistently produce more satisfying experiences for their partners than men half their age who rely on assumption, habit, and an outdated map of a body that has changed. Because the body of a woman over 60 is not the same body it was at 35. And the approach that produced results then may not be producing results now. Not because something is broken, but because the terrain has evolved and most men are still navigating it with old coordinates. Today, I am going to give you new coordinates. Specifically, I am going to walk you through the anatomy, the physiology, the technique, and the psychological environment required to locate and stimulate the G-spot effectively and consistently in a partner over 60. This is not a video about gimmicks or shortcuts. It is a video about knowledge, refinement, and the specific kind of attentive skill that separates men who genuinely satisfy their partners from men who simply go through the motions. Because at 60, with the patience, the presence, and the emotional depth that this stage of life brings, you have everything it takes to be the best intimate partner your woman has ever had. Today, I am going to show you exactly what that looks like. Welcome back to the channel. If you are here for the first time, my name is Dr. Julia Rhodes. I am a certified men's sex therapist with over a decade of clinical experience working with men and couples across all stages of life. Before we go further, and what is coming in this video is some of the most technically specific and practically useful content on this channel. I want to ask you one thing. If you are a man over 60 who is serious about understanding his partner's body, deepening his intimate skills, and providing the kind of experience that most men never learn how to create, this channel was built for you. Every single week, I bring you honest, research-backed, clinically grounded content that most men never receive from any source in their lives. Content that has the power to genuinely transform the quality of your intimate relationship. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications because this conversation continues every single week and every video builds on the last. Subscribe. Let's get into the anatomy. Let's begin. The aging female body, what changes after 60? For men over 60 whose partners are likely postmenopausal, understanding what has changed in the female body is not optional background information. It is the foundation of effective technique. Because the approach that worked reliably at 35 may be producing far less consistent results at 60. And the reason is almost never a loss of capacity. The reason is a change in conditions that most men were never told about and therefore never adapted to. Here is what happens physiologically after menopause that directly affects G-spot stimulation. Estrogen decline following menopause leads to what clinicians call vaginal atrophy, a reduction in the thickness, elasticity, and lubrication of vaginal tissue. The vaginal walls become thinner and less cushioned. Natural lubrication decreases significantly, and the sensitivity of erogenous tissue, including the anterior wall where the G-spot region sits, changes in ways that are real but navigable with the right approach. Research published in Menopause, the Journal of the Menopause Society, confirms that these changes alter both the location and the nature of pleasurable sensation for many women. The G-spot region may feel less immediately distinct to the touch. The tissue is thinner, the engorgement during arousal may be less pronounced than it once was, and the sensation produced by stimulation may take longer to build to intensity. What this means in practice is critical. Technique becomes more important after 60, not less. More patience is required, more deliberate, sustained stimulation, a greater awareness of the specific conditions that need to be in place before stimulation is attempted, and a willingness to adapt in pressure, in pace, in positioning, and in the tools used to the body as it actually is rather than as it was. There is also a comfort dimension that is non-negotiable. Vaginal dryness and reduced tissue elasticity mean that stimulation attempted without adequate lubrication can be uncomfortable or painful regardless of technique. High-quality lubricant is not optional in this context. It is the difference between a pleasurable experience and a painful one. Use it generously, without hesitation, and without making it a significant moment. It is simply part of the preparation, like warming up before exercise. The body after 60 is fully capable of profound pleasure. It simply requires a more informed, more patient, and more deliberately adapted approach to access it. Arousal first, the non-negotiable prerequisite. Before we get into any specific technique, before we talk about positioning, pressure, or pace, I need to address the single most common reason men report being unable to find the G-spot. They attempt to locate it before adequate arousal has occurred. This is not a minor oversight, it is a fundamental error that makes successful stimulation physiologically unlikely, regardless of how accurate your anatomical knowledge is or how technically skilled your approach may be. Here is why. During arousal, genuine sustained physiological arousal, the internal clitoral complex engorges with blood. The clitoral bulbs fill, the erectile tissue swells, and as a direct result of this engorgement, the anterior vaginal wall, the G-spot region, becomes more pronounced, more accessible, and dramatically more sensitive. In an unaroused state, the anterior wall is relatively flat and the tissue is less differentiated. The area may feel similar to the surrounding tissue, slightly ridged, but without the distinct engorged quality that makes it clearly identifiable and highly responsive to stimulation. In a fully aroused state, the same area is transformed. The tissue swells forward, the texture becomes more distinctly ridged and pronounced, the sensitivity increases dramatically, and the same pressure or stimulation that produced little response 20 minutes ago now produces intense, immediate sensation. The G-spot is not a fixed location waiting to be found. It is a state-dependent region that becomes accessible through arousal. What does this mean practically? It means that extended, skilled, patient arousal is not the warm-up act before the main event. It is the main event that makes everything else possible. It means that kissing, touching, oral stimulation, and any other form of foreplay that builds genuine physiological arousal in your partner is not a courtesy or a prelude. It is the essential preparation without which G-spot stimulation is significantly less likely to work. Research confirms this consistently. Studies in sexual medicine identify insufficient arousal as one of the most common and most correctable reasons that G-spot stimulation fails to produce the expected response. The technique was not necessarily wrong. The conditions were not yet right. Build the arousal first, fully, patiently, without rushing toward the destination. And then, when her body is genuinely physiologically ready, everything that follows becomes not just more effective, but more pleasurable for both of you. The clitoral-vaginal connection. The anatomy section gave you the foundation. Now, I want to give you the clinical insight that most directly changes the effectiveness of what you do with that knowledge. The clitoral-vaginal connection. Research by French urologist Dr. Odile Buisson and Dr. Pierre Foldes using ultrasound imaging during arousal demonstrated something that has profound implications for technique. They showed that the anterior vaginal wall, the G-spot region, and the internal clitoris are not separate structures producing separate sensations. They are part of a single interconnected complex, now referred to in clinical literature as the CUV complex, the clito-urethro-vaginal complex. What this means in practice is elegant and important. Isolated internal stimulation without any simultaneous engagement of the external clitoral complex is significantly less effective than combined stimulation that engages both simultaneously. The internal and external components of the clitoral system amplify each other. Stimulate one while the other is engaged, and the neurological response is greater, more intense, and more consistent than either produces alone. This is why positions and techniques that allow for simultaneous external clitoral stimulation alongside internal anterior wall pressure consistently produce stronger responses than internal stimulation alone. It is why manual stimulation techniques that incorporate both components, external thumb or palm pressure on the clitoral area combined with internal anterior wall stimulation, are consistently described by women as significantly more intense than techniques that focus exclusively on the internal location. It also explains something that many men find confusing about G-spot stimulation. Why does it work brilliantly sometimes and inconsistently at other times? Often the answer is this: On the occasions when it works most powerfully, some degree of simultaneous external clitoral engagement is happening, consciously or not. On the occasions when the response is muted, that external component is absent. Build both into your technique. Treat the G-spot not as an isolated target, but as one access point into a larger interconnected system of sensation, and engage that system from multiple angles simultaneously. The results will speak for themselves. The physical technique step by step. We have the anatomy, we have the physiological context, we have the prerequisite of full arousal, and the understanding of the clitoral vaginal connection. Now let's talk about technique. I am going to walk you through this step by step, clearly and specifically, because vague descriptions of this kind of stimulation are not useful to anyone. Precision matters here. Let's be precise. Step 1. Positioning. The most effective position for manual G-spot stimulation places your partner on her back with her hips slightly elevated. A folded pillow beneath her hips is ideal. This tilts the pelvis in a way that brings the anterior vaginal wall into closer alignment with the angle of your inserted fingers, making it significantly easier to locate and sustain pressure on the target area without awkward wrist positioning or strain. You should be positioned to her side or between her legs, whichever allows you the most comfortable and sustained access. Comfort matters here, not just for her, but for you. We will address the physical challenges of technique for men over 60 in the next section, but begin with a position that you can maintain without strain or fatigue for several minutes. Step 2, preparation and entry. Apply lubricant generously. This is not optional. It reduces friction, increases comfort, and allows the kind of slow, deliberate movement that effective stimulation requires. Use a high-quality water-based lubricant and reapply as needed without interrupting the flow of the experience. Begin with external stimulation. Spend real time, not seconds, but minutes with external clitoral and vulval stimulation before any internal contact. Her body needs to be genuinely aroused before internal access is appropriate. Pay attention to her breathing, her muscle response, the way her body begins to move toward your touch. These are your cues that arousal is building. When you move to internal stimulation, enter slowly and gently with one finger, the index or middle finger of whichever hand gives you the most comfortable angle. Move in a slow, exploratory way. There is no urgency. There is no destination you need to arrive at quickly. Step 3, locating the region. With your finger inserted palm up, meaning the pad of your finger is facing toward her navel, toward the front wall of the vagina, curl your finger in a gentle, beckoning motion toward you. You are exploring the anterior wall, the front wall of the vaginal canal. The G-spot region will typically feel slightly different from the surrounding tissue. In a fully aroused woman, the tissue here is more pronounced, slightly ridged, or spongy in texture compared to the smoother tissue of the posterior wall. The difference may be subtle in a postmenopausal woman due to tissue changes, but with a fully aroused partner and adequate lubrication, it is typically identifiable with careful, slow exploration. When you reach the area approximately 2 to 3 in inside on the front wall, apply gentle, sustained pressure and observe her response. You are not thrusting. You are pressing gently, deliberately, and paying complete attention to what her body tells you. Step 4. The stimulation technique. Once you have located the region and confirmed a positive response, the most consistently effective stimulation technique is what is often described as the come hither motion, a repeated, rhythmic curling of the finger toward you against the anterior wall. This motion applies repeated, deliberate pressure to the region in a way that builds sensation progressively rather than producing an immediate peak that fades. Begin slowly. Let the sensation build. Maintain consistent rhythmic pressure and pace, not hurried, not anxious, but steady and intentional. As arousal deepens, you can increase pressure and pace in response to her cues. Her breathing will deepen, her body will move, she may vocalize. These responses are your guide. Follow them rather than following a predetermined script. Step 5, integrating external stimulation. This is where technique becomes technique worth knowing. While maintaining internal anterior wall stimulation with your fingers, engage the external clitoral area simultaneously. This can be achieved with your thumb if your hand position allows, pressing gently but firmly on the external clitoral region while your fingers work internally. Alternatively, your other hand, your mouth, or a vibrator can provide the external stimulation. The combination of internal anterior wall pressure and external clitoral engagement simultaneously activates the QV complex in its entirety. For most women, the difference in intensity between isolated internal stimulation and this combined approach is significant and immediate. Maintain both components. Adjust the pressure, pace, and rhythm of each in response to her responses. And remember, you are not performing a procedure. You are in a conversation with her body. Listen to it at every step. Adapting your technique after 60. Men over 60 experience real physical changes that can affect the sustained execution of manual stimulation. And I want to address these directly because the answer is not to push through discomfort or pretend the changes are not there. The answer is intelligent, adaptive technique that produces equally good or better results with less physical strain. Here is what changes and what to do about it. Finger and wrist fatigue is the most commonly reported physical challenge. The come hither motion, sustained for several minutes, places repeated demand on the flexors of the finger and the muscles of the forearm. For men with reduced grip strength, joint stiffness, or early arthritis, this can become uncomfortable or limiting before adequate stimulation has been achieved. The adaptive solution is positioning. By adjusting the angle of your arm, keeping your elbow supported, and using your whole forearm for the motion, rather than isolating it in the wrist and fingers, you distribute the physical demand across a larger muscle group and significantly extend the duration of comfortable stimulation. Using a curved vibrator or G-spot specific massager as a supplementary or primary tool is not a concession. It is an evidence-based, clinically endorsed adaptive strategy that consistently produces better outcomes for both partners. Modern vibrators designed specifically for anterior wall stimulation combine the correct curve and the correct angle to reach the G-spot region effectively with minimal physical demand from the user. They also provide a consistent, sustained pressure and vibration that manual stimulation alone cannot replicate. There is no category of intimacy tools that carries more clinical endorsement in sexual gerontology research than vibrators and massagers used by couples. They extend capacity, they reduce anxiety around physical performance, and they produce measurably better outcomes in both arousal and satisfaction for women whose partners use them as part of their technique. Positioning your partner can also significantly reduce the physical demand on you. When she is positioned with hips elevated and you are at a comfortable angle, whether seated beside her, between her legs at the edge of the bed, or in any other position that allows sustained access without strain, you preserve your physical capacity for the duration of the experience. Pacing matters too. There is no rule that sustained, uninterrupted stimulation is more effective than stimulation that varies. Building intensity, pausing, changing technique, returning. In fact, research suggests that varied stimulation that includes pauses, changes in pressure, and shifts between techniques is often experienced as more intensely arousing than uninterrupted monotony. Use pacing strategically. It is not a limitation. It is a technique. The psychological dimension. Everything I have described in the technical sections of this video will produce a fraction of its potential without the psychological environment that makes her body fully available for what you are attempting to create. Research published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior confirms what every experienced clinician already knows. Sexual satisfaction in long-term relationships after 60 is not primarily a function of physical technique. It is strongly correlated with emotional safety, communication quality, and mutual attunement. The felt sense that both partners are genuinely present, genuinely interested in each other, and genuinely focused on shared pleasure rather than individual performance. For G-spot stimulation specifically, the psychological dimension is particularly significant. This kind of stimulation requires a woman to be deeply relaxed and genuinely present in her body. Performance anxiety on either side is physiologically incompatible with the level of arousal and physical openness that effective G-spot stimulation requires. If she senses pressure, impatience, or the transactional energy of technique being applied rather than desire being expressed, her nervous system will not fully relax into the experience. And a nervous system that is not fully relaxed is a body that is not fully available for the depth of sensation you are working to create. What creates the psychological environment that makes this possible? Everything we have discussed on this channel over the course of every video we have made. Emotional safety built consistently over time. Genuine, unhurried presence that communicates she is the only thing in your world right now. Desire expressed not as a performance, but as a truth. The absence of urgency and the presence of complete patience and communication before, during, and after. Not necessarily in elaborate conversations, though those have their place, but in the quiet, continuous, attentive dialogue of a man who is paying complete attention to his partner and allowing what he notices to guide what he does. Ask her, not anxiously, curiously, what feels good? What feels better? Is there more pressure or less pressure she wants? Does she want you to stay exactly here? Her answers, spoken or expressed in the language of her body, are the most precise and most valuable technical guidance available to you. No book, no video, no clinical description is as accurate or as useful as her real-time response to what you are doing. Listen to it, follow it, trust it above everything else. Common mistakes and how to fix them. Let me name the most common mistakes men make with G-spot stimulation and give you the direct fix for each one. Mistake 1, attempting it without sufficient arousal. We covered this extensively, but it bears repeating because it is the most common and most impactful error. Attempting G-spot stimulation before a woman is fully physiologically aroused is attempting to access a region that has not yet become accessible. The fix is simple and non-negotiable. Spend far more time on arousal than you think is necessary. When you think she is ready, wait another 5 minutes. Build it fully before you attempt to locate anything. Mistake 2, working from the wrong angle. The anterior wall, the G-spot region, is the front wall, the wall facing the navel. Many men apply pressure to the posterior wall by default, particularly in positions where palm-down entry is more natural. The fix. Always ensure your palm is facing upward toward her navel when attempting internal anterior wall stimulation. This single positional correction resolves the majority of location difficulties. Mistake 3, using too much pressure too soon. The G-spot region, particularly in postmenopausal women with thinner tissue, is sensitive in ways that build gradually rather than responding to immediate, intense pressure. Starting with too much force can produce discomfort rather than pleasure, and once discomfort has entered the experience, it is difficult to recover from. The fix. Always begin with the lightest pressure that produces a response and build gradually and only in response to clear positive cues. Mistake 4. Isolated internal stimulation without external engagement. Stimulating the anterior wall in isolation consistently produces less intense results than combined stimulation of the internal and external clitoral complex simultaneously. The fix. Always integrate some form of external clitoral engagement alongside internal stimulation. Whether through your other hand, your mouth, or a vibrator, the combined approach is consistently more effective. Mistake 5, giving up too quickly. G-spot stimulation in women over 60 may take significantly longer to produce the intense response that younger women might experience more rapidly. Reduced tissue sensitivity, lower baseline arousal, and the slower physiological arousal response of the postmenopausal body all contribute to a longer timeline. This is not failure. It is physics, the fix. Commit to the process with patience and genuine presence. The response, when it comes, is worth every moment of patient, attentive work. If today's video gave you something genuinely useful, a new understanding of her anatomy, a refined approach to technique, a clearer picture of what her body needs and how to meet it, then please do one thing right now. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this video with a man in your life who is serious about being the best intimate partner he can be. Leave me a comment below. Did today's video give you something genuinely new? Was there a section that changed your understanding completely? I read every single comment, and your response shapes every video I create. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes. I'll see you in the next one.